Hey, what's going on, everyone? Mike here in the BFH garage. I'm getting ready to rebuild another axle, but before I do that, I wanted to cover another topic, and that is removing bearings off of the carrier. When it comes to removing carrier bearings, we have a few options. The first one I'm going to talk about is called a bearing splitter. And as you can see here, it has two halves that are held together with these long bolts. And you got to put the thing around your bearing, push them together, tighten the bolts all the way up, and then use a press to get the bearing off. I don't like these at all. In fact, I despise them so much that the one that came with my original shop press, I've since thrown away. They tend to bend. They, without a doubt, will destroy your bearings. They're very time consuming to get the bearings off. My least favorite out of all of them. Let's move on to my favorite. My favorite way to remove bearings is going to be a clamshell bearing puller. The nice thing about that is it's very quick, it's very effective, and you can do it without damaging the bearing. So if you're setting up gears and you want to pull the bearings on and off to get your shims right, the clamshell bearing puller is a very effective method to remove bearings. The next method I'm going to talk about is another easy method. It's just a little bit time consuming, and for people who can't afford a clamshell puller because they're not cheap by any stretch of the imagination, this is a very effective way to remove bearings. However, understand that you will destroy the bearings, so make sure you have new bearings on hand. With the axle behind me, the whole reason I'm rebuilding it is because it needs new bearings and seals. So I'm not worried about saving the bearing, and this method here is very effective. Nothing more than a Dremel tool with a cutoff wheel, and once you get that cut deep enough, you take a cold chisel and a hammer, you pop it, it breaks the cone part of the bearing, slides right off. So let me show you how this thing's done. Very simple. So when you use a cutoff wheel, you need to take the outside cage off first in order to get to the cone. So if you just cut between two bearings, you'll pop that right off, use a screwdriver, all of those little bearings will fall right out. Once you break through, take your screwdriver, and you can pull this cage right off. With all of those parts off, now it's time to attack the cone. The thing you need to be careful here is, as you can see here, that's your journal, that's your bearing. However, this part of the bearing here is conical in shape, so it's thicker on the back side than it is on the front side. The problem is, as you're cutting, you can't see what you're cutting into, so you need to be really careful, and I'll show you as I get close to that what to look for. So as I was cutting off that bearing, I put a little nick there. That's fine. What you don't want to do is put a nick on the journal here. So let's get to cutting this off. So as you're cutting, you're going to see how your cut mark comes down towards the journal. However, you want to favor back to this side here. Like I said, it's conical. It goes out that way a little bit. So you got to get deep on this side. This side here, I'm all the way almost to the journal, it looks like. So with my current cutoff wheel, I'm as far as I can get without damaging anything. So I'm going to go ahead and try to take a cold chisel. I'm going to put it right between this thing here, pop it real hard, and see if I can get that to crack. You want to give it a good pop. You don't have to kill it, but you got to look to see if it's split, and I can't tell. Yep, it's split. And the way you can tell, if you take a screwdriver right there and you turn it, you can see how it wants to come right off. So put your screwdriver in the notch. You're going to turn as you're pulling it off. You'll see how it starts to wiggle off. You don't want to lose the shims, so keep your shims on there. The race is off. So after you get the shims off, double check, make sure there's no damage. Boom, time to put on a new bearing. Now the easier, more effective way. Using a clamshell, you got to put the race on. Put that there. Take this, make sure that this part right here is flat down up against the race. You're going to take your clam, make sure that it goes underneath the race, and then you're going to adjust the upper one to where it's tight. Put on the other half. Secure your locking collar and drive it. Oh, helps if I get on the right setting. Pull that off. This comes off. Here's your shims. And inside here is your bearing. Completely undamaged. You can use it again. That's all there is to it to getting bearings off of a carrier. Again, if you want to do it without damaging the bearings, you're going to need to get a clamshell puller. You might have luck trying to do it a different way without damage, but more than likely they will end up damaged. So without a clamshell bearing puller, plan on replacing your bearings. And in my case here, I'm rebuilding it anyway, so cutting them off is not a big deal. And just make sure you have new bearings on hand before you commit to this. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Stay tuned for the rebuild.